Hi, welcome back to the EV Life podcast. I'm Crystal.
I'm Hannah Neal.
And today we're going to be talking about race cars.
Yeah. So we're talking about EVs and motorsports. So EVs have really kind of, seeped into a lot of different industries. And in our research for our topics this season, we came across Formula E.
Yeah. So Formula E is very similar to Formula One racing, if you're familiar with that, except the cars are fully electric. So they are still racing through like major cities. There is still that fan interaction. It's very neat, but I guess a little bit more quieter, or a lot quieter than the traditional Formula One race cars.
Yeah. And so we also came across some articles about students at the U of A who built an EV race car. And so we actually had the U of A Formula Racing team on the podcast for this episode. And yeah, we get to talk to one of their engineers there and hear about
what they're up to.
Yeah,
it was really cool. I actually didn't know this, but the U of A Formula Racing Club has been around since 1999. So, they typically work on combustion engine race cars. And then just a couple years ago started delving into EV race cars. So Jessie from the club spoke to us to tell us a little bit about that. So why don't you listen to my episode with Jessie, and if you'd like to share your thoughts on this on our interview, you can do so in the EV Life group on the AMA podcast. I hope you enjoy. Hi, Jessie. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
No problem at all.
Can you tell me a little bit about the U of A's Formula Racing Club and what you do in the club?
So the University of Alberta Formula Racing Club has been around since 1999. That was our first competition year. We were looking through the records the other day. We started pretty much in 1997 with the design. And since up until about 2024, we were primarily making internal combustion cars. We have a website, so you can search us up and look at all our cars. Since 2024, we started building our own electric race cars.
And what made you all decide to build an electric race car after just, sticking to combustion engines for so long?
Essentially, the competition, there's more competitions way over in Europe. And right now, a lot of them are starting to phase out their internal combustion events. So we decided to get ahead of the curve and start on our electric a bit earlier.
And how long did that take? Like, are you all still working on it? Is it complete? What's the process for building an EV race car versus just the standard race car that you've been building, the club's been building since 1999?
Generally, for all our cars, it's been a one-year design cycle. So we start pretty much in August and finish May, June-ish sometime. Then we ship it off to competition. This EV, we did a little bit of work in 2023, but a lot of work had to be redone because of rules changes and some components just weren't spec'd out properly. So we basically redid the entire design for UA24. So it took about 8 months, somewhere in there.
And you said you shipped the cars off for competition. So who's driving the car? What competitions are you submitting the cars for?
So we go to FSA Electric at Michigan International Speedway. It's usually mid-June. We generally drive it down there ourselves. We trailer it. So jump in the truck, rent a trailer, off we go. People who drive it are basically those who show an interest in building race cars. So all you got to do is show up for 8 months and you get a chance to drive it.
So can you tell me a little bit about the performance of the EV race car compared to the combustion race cars that you built in the past?
So the combustion race car, generally we have a big torque curve. It's the big famous start slow, goes high, you get a peak power, and it drops off. Electric vehicles generally have a consistent torque curve across up until a certain speed where it drops off. The real big difference in that is you get a lot more low-end torque and you can get a lot more acceleration out of the car. Internal combustion, it's sometimes lighter. It generally will have higher peak power and you have more gears. Our electric race car just runs a direct drive sprocket chain system right now with a single gear ratio. So we don't have the need to have multiple gears because we have all that straight torque. Our models initially showed that we should be able to do a burnout up to 80 kilometers an hour.
Nice. So what was it like competing with this car?
Unfortunately, this car never made it to competition last year. We had a bit of a mechanical failure about a week before comp, and it was determined that we couldn't successfully do it in time, so we decided not to go to comp. We're going to be rebuilding it this year and bringing it to UA 2025 competition.
So for the competitions that you enter these vehicles in, because this is going to be like a fully electric race car, are the competitions different? Are you entering like strictly electric vehicle competitions, or are there like a combination, I guess, of ICE race cars and EV race cars?
Up until about 2022, it was just a combination IC EV. One of the comps would have EVs with the ICs. At 2023, they decided to separate it into two competitions. So that was another reason the competition for IC got pushed up, and it gave us less time to work on it. So going over to EV gave us that time there. We can either run it in FSA hybrid or FSA electric. The electric one is pure electric vehicles only. The hybrid also includes some hybrid powertrains. So there's still gas, but there's electric motors attached, generally for the front wheels.
What were some of the things that you learned working on this car? Were there challenges? Like, how did it differ from working on just ICE race cars?
As a mechanical engineer myself, I understand a lot of fluid dynamics and mechanical forces and mechanical deformation. Electrical race cars is a whole nother system because we are dealing with high power output electronics. Our inverter put out a lot of electrical noise. So for anyone who doesn't know, that's essentially electromagnetic radiation leaking out of the wires. So a lot of the big thing about electronics is related to pipe flow. So water flows down the pipe. You have resistance by drag forces and velocity, flow rate, all that good stuff. It's the same thing, but electromagnetic interference is basically water leaking out of the pipe everywhere. It's not direct current. It's not any electrons. It's just magnetic fields. And that will actually just dissipate a lot of energy out. So we ran into a lot of ground noise on some of our systems within our battery pack. There's a lot of noise on the high voltage leads. That was the biggest thing we learned. We didn't design much for noise, and we spent about 2 months diagnosing it. So yeah, it was a little bit of a setback.
So I just want to backtrack a little bit. Is the club open to anyone who's interested in building race cars, or is it strictly just the engineering students at the U of A?
Anyone who's willing to build a race car.
So anyone, it doesn't matter what program they're enrolled in?
No. For our last ICE vehicle, Psych Major built the engine.
Oh, nice. So can you tell us a little bit about the club's plans for the future and what do you guys have coming up?
Future plans, we're planning on redoing some of our accumulator because accumulators are a battery pack. They decided to coin our own term for it. But right now our accumulators heating up a bit faster than our earlier models. So we're looking at water cooling it right now. There's a bit of vehicle dynamic stuff that's going on and just weight reduction. They're looking at changing suspension points and camber just a little bit. There's a little bit of rules changes. For the further future, it's really unknown because we are a student club. So we have high yearly turnover rates, and that really affects long-term development of our members.
Do you have hopes for after graduation to continue working on race cars? Is that sort of like a passion for you?
I mostly enjoy the powertrain system, so I wouldn't mind if it was a race car or just regular vehicles. There's not much difference between the two systems. It's just one you're designing for a lot less weight and a lot lower safety factors to account for that weight.
Yeah. Do you typically work on just one race car at a time, or do you all try to build out a fleet? Are there multiple cars being worked on, or is it do you guys just focus on one car every year?
Unfortunately, due to budgetary constraints, generally when we do build a new car, the old one does get taken apart for parts. We right now have our last IC car just working. It's just mostly for driver training, as it's a lot quicker to fill a gas tank than it is to charge our battery. So it allows us to do a lot more just testing. The EV is better performance, and we're going to use it at comp, but IC just, you can run more testing.
Yeah.
We would love to keep all our cars, but we don't have the budget for it.
Of course. Well, Jessie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and telling me a little bit about the club and what you do there. This was really interesting, and we wish you the best and good luck in your upcoming competition.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the EV Life podcast. Make sure that you're subscribed so you never miss an episode. And if you'd like to join the conversation, you can always do so in the EV Life group on the AMA mobile app. We'll talk to you in the next episode.